Hey legends, welcome back to the Mason Cox Show. Today's guest, a very special human, one of my favorites. He's on my side of the locker room. We've got a little crew over there. His name is Jeremy Howe. He's played for Melbourne and he's played for Collingwood. He's played in the Big Freeze M&D round that is coming up, and he's got plenty of stories to tell. So without further ado, we're going to get straight into this one. Welcome, Jeremy Howe.
Thanks, Coxie. Thanks for having me.
I'm very excited for this one, mate, because it's a long time. You're a very, very lovely human, one of the most positive humans. I say this all the time to you, but you're one of the most positive, loving humans I've ever met. But you are a Tasmanian man. How are you feeling about this Tassie team? What's the...
I thought you were going to almost pump me up like that and backhand me with being Tasmanian. But yeah, it's exciting. I think, like I've touched on it before, that something that the state's been crying out for so long. And like I've been in the system only 13 years, but I feel like it's always been put on the back burner. It's like, oh yeah, how good would it be to have a team, but then it doesn't really get much traction. Whereas the last probably 2-3 years, it's been spoken about consistently. And from all reports, yeah, everything's kind of been ticked off. So with any luck, I think 2028 is apparently the year. But
you were down there.
I'll be well and truly hung the boots up by then.
You weren't protesting down there for the stadium? That wasn't you? Nah.
I'm certainly not one of those. Nah. But I think there's pushback in everything that gets sorted out these days. I think it was 6,000, but I'm sure the other 500 would probably be happy.
You said you recently just bought a house down in Tassie. I mean, is this a sign? Or is this?
I didn't buy one, mate. I sold one.
Sorry, sold one. Opposite direction.
Yes.
Sorry,
so
Tassie,
if anything, I'm getting further away. So.
Yeah, okay. Would you coach the Tassie team?
The head coach, you reckon?
You and Jack Rewald, I feel like you do wonders.
Jack's definitely, he's already put his hand up to say that he won't coach, but he wants to be a part of it. But if I got an opportunity within a role in Tassie, yeah, it'd be pretty cool to be able to be a part of it. But yeah, I haven't thought about it too thoroughly as of yet.
Smart by you. Don't ever close any doors, Jeremy. Don't ever close any doors. I want to ask this. Now, you said like Tasmania, and we kind of hang shit on Tassie a little bit on this podcast. We do love Tasmania. It's a beautiful place, Jeremy. Now, can you explain exactly, because I feel like a lot of people say this a lot of times, they're like, oh my gosh, it means so much to the state, and we've been crying out, like you said, and all those kind of stuff. You've been in the footy system through Tasmania, and you've had a lot of coaches and stuff that have probably, been wishing this day had come for a long, long time. Can you explain just exactly why people are so excited about it?
Well, I think firstly, the opportunity that it'll present for generations to come for now to be able to come through a system, I feel like when it's set up really well and they'll get it all organised really productively, I feel like there's going to be academies both up in the north and down the south. So that instantly, so like pathways coming through now become a lot more accessible. I feel like they invest a lot more money and opportunity that'll come with. And that obviously breathes excitement straight away. Our draft numbers probably aren't as strong as what that had been earlier days, but, with the right academy things and pathways, like I said, set up in that manner, I feel like that'll only produce more talent to come through, not only just for the boys, but the girls as well. And yeah, you can't help but there's a sense of enthusiasm, great energy about the state because it's something that they've been crying out for so long. They feel like such a rich history in AFL, but to not have their own team is kind of like what they've been screaming out for, and we finally have it. Well, we kind of feel like we finally have it. And we'll just see what happens, but it's a space that makes everyone feel pretty good about being Tasmanian.
If the stadium doesn't go forward, I think Queenstown Oval. I don't know anyone out there that's listening. Queenstown Oval, the gravel oval, might be a good little place to play.
Chuck a stadium around that, no chance. Chance. I remember falling off push bikes on a gravel road. That was bad enough. So literally getting tackled on a gravel set.
Did you play there?
Never played there. Okay, Thank God.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure that's like prehistoric days when they play on that oval, but it was like there's no chance I'd be seen on that oval.
I think they're still playing there, I want to say. What's the name going to be? You think Tasmanian Tigers? It's got to be.
Yeah.
But then the Tigers,
the Devils is obviously one that gets thrown around a bit. Like I was lucky enough to play for the VFL team when we had one in Tassie, and we were called the Tassie Devils. The strips were actually unreal, and they were amazing. So, yeah, I don't know. The name's probably like the cherry on top. Just trying to get it all organised is like that's kind of the crux of the main event. So we'll see how we go.
Unreal. We'll get into another side of things, but everyone's probably wanting to hear this. How's the injury going?
Yeah, it's tracking really well. I feel like with a lot of long-term injuries, I guess the start's probably the hardest. And then when you start seeing a lot of progress, that's probably the best part because you feel like you're trending really well. And then I'm kind of getting towards the end of what my recovery program looks like. And that's when you probably start getting a little bit more impatient. You feel like you couldn't potentially play. And then, you still got to tick a few more boxes and jump through a few more hurdles. And I'm probably in that space right now. So, I feel like I'm fit, but, match fitness is a different thing. And in season is probably the hardest time to get match sim because you boys rarely play any, which is understandable. So, selfishly enough, I wish that you could provide a bit more of that. But, I feel like I'm getting there. Post-bye is probably like the realistic target, whether it's Adelaide or the weekend after, depending on who the VFL played, to be honest. It was like, I'll be coming through the twos, I guess.
Mate, last time I saw you play VFL, then you kicked like 5.
I said to Fraser, I was like, mate, I'm more than happy. It's like, I'll play with you. I'll play for you. But I haven't played competitive VFL footy since 2011. So it's a fair bit different now. I feel like when I first played VFL, this is before I got drafted, you were playing against like genuine monsters, which was like 30-year-olds and they would like full men grown. And it was just like I'd get belted flat out. Whereas it's almost like a glorified under 21s. Like it's literally like filled with kids. The talent pool's great. But it's certainly nothing like it was back like even 10 years ago. So more than happy to pay my dues and go through the VFL. But that's a conversation to be had with Fly.
I just want to see you back out there just huzzah!
It will be nice.
Everyone.
I was like the thought of, I've been getting the hanger bag out.
Yes.
I've been trying. Haven't been going too crazy on it. But look, with any luck, it happens sooner rather than later because I miss it. But I'm more than happy to watch you boys do your thing because it's pretty impressive to watch at the moment.
Ash Johnson took a hanger on me the other day. I was just that shitty at him after looking at it. He's probably got a poster in his room already. But we'll go. I guess can we dive deeper into this injury because I remember seeing you in hospital, man. It was absolutely cooked. What happened? Like I think everyone that saw it on TV and the whole idea of like broadcast not showing it, I think shows how serious it was. And that was probably one of the first injuries I think they'd decided to do that where it was that gruesome. It was like, nah, we're not going to replay this. Like whenever it happened, like the photo of you in the air, you look like you're 10 feet off the ground. Yeah. Like just absolutely you just got this full drop to go forward to. Like what was going through your head in the play?
I guess what happened initially is like, I was on Jeremy Cameron on the open side, kind of sliding back to goal.
Yeah, cruisy day, right?
And I knew, I saw Stengel just floating through the middle of the ground. I was like, realistically, he's a higher chance of getting the ball than what Cameron is at this current time. So I made the call to be able to just leave Cameron and go squeeze on Stengel. And the ball, funnily enough, just got kicked with a bit more air. I was like, I'm a chance here. I'm definitely going to get it. So I was like, I jumped up, went to mark the ball, but I've actually, like I copped a bit of criticism early days for shit mixing Stengel. Like I was like, well, to be honest, if you go back and watch it, I turn my body to the side. Yeah. Instead of what I normally do is jump and lift my knees straight up. If I did that, I probably would have broke his neck. But like I actually turned to the side and that's what cost me because I turned to the side, my hip hits him in the head and that flips me upside down. So if I jumped straight, I would have just held my balance and would have been okay. He probably wouldn't have. So it ended up costing me in the end. But yeah, flipped upside down. Couldn't really find out where the ground was, put my arms down, and I heard the snap before I hit the ground. But I was like, I wasn't sure where it was. I was like, it's my shoulder because when you watch the footage, I grab my shoulder first. So I obviously did my AC joint because I broke 2 bones in my elbow plus I broke 4 bones in my forearm. So did a hell of a job. And then it didn't take too long. Like I think Bruzzy was one of the first to come over and saw that the bone was sticking out my arm. And that's when he told everyone to get out. He's like, don't even bother. I was like, it's pretty bad. And that's when I looked down and my forearm was facing the bench. But my hand was facing the bench, but my elbow was tucked into my waist. So once I saw that, panic probably set in. Like that's when the pain kind of went through the roof. And it was like an interesting, like I feel like my pain threshold is not bad. But like the burn, like it felt like someone had a blowtorch in my forearm. Like it was so significant that my legs start like fluttering, like I was like shaking on the ground. And then they jammed a whistle in my mouth and I was like, this is not good for me. I was like, take the whistle out. All this is like doing is making me feel sick. And it was probably the longest, like I got pain relief when I got stretched off down. I had to get the ambos came in and they gave me they put like a IV set up in my arm. And that's when they first gave me a bit of pain relief. But it was about 20 minutes post-injury, and it was the worst 20 minutes of my whole life. Like, the pain was so bad that I just couldn't handle it. Like, it was literally shaking. Like, Fuxie's trying to hold my arm straight because it's so floppy. And then, once I started getting pain relief, it was like, that's when I started like calming down. I could like breathe normal. And then, got amboed away straight to emergency, where got to watch you boys on their phone.
You finished in that much pain. The first thing you're thinking of, boys, did we get the dub?
I got pain relief, and it was almost instant relief. Nah, it was like it started with F. Anyway, it was good. And they gave that to me, and then watched the game on the phone on the way to hospital. Saw you guys get the dub, and I was like, great. And then that next 2 hours was like all about getting scans, x-rays. One of the most interesting things, I haven't told too many people, but it's quite a funny story. So I go in there, right? I have to get an x-ray. So I was like, okay, so I'll stand up. I put my arm on the x-ray bench, and he's just like, yep, hold it there. That's great. Thanks very much. He's like, gets it. He goes, all right, now I need you to hold the screen, so like a temporary screen behind, and just lift your arm up mid-air and turn it to the side and just get that shot. And I was like, did you see my first x-ray? He's like, yeah. I was like, well, you'd understand that I can't do that. Like, my arm would just flop halfway down my forearm. He goes, yeah, you're probably right. I was like,
good chat.
We won't do it. I was like, mate, are you kidding me? Like, I was like,
oh my God.
And I looked over the two ambos, and they're like having a chuckle. I was like, is this bloke for real? So got that all sorted. And then once that was sorted, I got a temporary cast put on.
So this is like your bone's still sticking out.
Still sticking
and
out.
You're
So
like sitting here getting an x-ray at the same time.
When I lifted my arm off the thing, there was claret all over the bench. Like, so thankfully the bone was out the back of my forearm, so I couldn't see it the whole time.
Oh my gosh, that gives me crazy.
And then, the next hour and a half after that, I got dosed up so heavily on
fentanyl.
Ketamine.
Got it.
That was the original drug.
Drugs.
The original drug was at fentanyl at the ground. And but then they dosed me up on ketamine when I was laying on my back, and that completely rattled me. And then when I was kind of passing in and out, and then at that stage they grabbed my arm and just pulled it straight, and then the bone went back in.
Oh.
And then I didn't have surgery for about 18 hours. So within that time frame, that's probably when the infection started doing its damage, because the bone obviously had gone back in my arm. And then, funnily enough, right where the bone puncture scar is exactly where I got infected. So,
because a lot of people don't realize that, like, it was, don't get me wrong, gruesome injury, but then there was like the kick-on effect of this infection that made you like stay in hospital for a decent chunk of time.
Well, that was the thing. So we had the surgery on the Saturday. Checked out on Monday because everything went well. Like, Andrew Oppie did an unreal job. They cleaned it out, but I guess the infection, like, you can't really see it at the early stage, and probably started doing damage. And what they thought was clean, obviously, probably already started doing its work. So, zipped me up, checked out Monday, had 2 real good days. I was like, yeah, I'm eating fine. I was like, I feel fine. And then by Thursday, like, my arm had kind of blown up a bit. I was like, oh yeah. And then I started like just sweating through clothes flat out. And I was like, oh, maybe it's just like, because I tried to get off the pain meds.
Yeah.
So I was like, oh, and I was in a bit of pain. So I was like, maybe it's just the pain and I'm having a reaction where I'm sweating. But I'm like, well, hang on. Like, I'm sitting on the couch and there's a puddle of sweat. And then like, the stupid thing of me, the next morning, I sweat through the bed all night, didn't sleep. I let Carly go to work. Yeah. I was like, I'll be fine. And like, at this stage, I was severely dehydrated because I'd sweat all night, didn't drink any fluids. Then I started almost like losing my shit. Like, I didn't know what was going on. And at that stage, I knew like I was in trouble. So I went straight back to hospital, where I spent like the next pretty much 2 weeks, and then had 4 surgeries in there to clean it all out. And yeah, you saw me at my worst, and
it was not
like,
good times.
Literally, like, I was referred to as like a vampire. Like, I was grey. My eyes were black. Like, I just had big panda eyes, like big black things under my eyes. And I was supposed to being hooked up on all these drugs and antibiotics and pain kit. Like, I was nowhere. Like, I felt like I was like almost like a recovering drug addict, like in there, because I couldn't function properly. I was being put on all these IV drips, taking probably 20 pills a day, and they just make you feel like shit.
Yeah.
plus you can't do anything. Like I was laying on my back for 23 hours a day, which you've been exposed to that, probably even worse. And I was only like that for about 10 days. Couldn't imagine how like you went when you had your eye, but I was like, I guess the thing for me that I struggled with the most was like, first and foremost, like I'm a dad.
Yeah, I was about to say. Yeah.
And I was like, and I'm a husband. So it's like, as soon as I get stripped of like those responsibilities, like I couldn't physically do anything and I couldn't support him. I can't pick Xander up. I couldn't hug Carlia. I couldn't do anything. And then being isolated in hospital the whole time, like it rattled me like so bad. Like I've never been that kind of like mentally rattled ever, I don't think. And like, thankfully, like you came in the most and that was like, they were like the highlights of my day when people came in and saw me. But also I didn't want to be a burden where people seen me in this state where I was like, I couldn't really do anything. And I was like, I contemplated, I was like, well, maybe this is it. Like this is maybe like the last time that because when I did my knee, like that was like almost like a car accident as well. I was like, why do I always get these severe injuries where they're so bad that you contemplate is like, what you're doing, is it really worth it? But, you know, thankfully you get fit, you get out, you start feeling healthy in that again. And you're like, no, I'm fine. Like I'm actually okay.
Yeah.
But I'm like, I spoke to Tommy Mitchell. I was like, the positive out of it was my arm. Like I was able to walk out of hospital. I was still like able to go on walks, take Xander to the park and stuff like that. But it's like if it was my leg, like Tommy, like I don't know, like that would be just another layer on top, which I probably wouldn't have been able to handle.
Yeah, because I remember you being in hospital, you're sitting there and you just were casually telling me that like, oh yeah, they're going to zip me again and then essentially clean it all out and then like zip it back up.
Yeah.
And that you're quite pissed off that the tattoo wasn't going to line up anymore. So I think that was one of those things you're not too happy about. But yeah, fuck man, like it was tough. Like it was to see you had all those wires and all the pills and everything else. And luckily Kelly was there to look after you a bit. And you eventually got to go see Xander and everything else. But it's always, people don't realize, I think, with footy, like how quickly, you know, your career can just change on a dime. Like, 100%. And one little action on the footy field can be, you know, the end of it all, which is just kind of nuts.
Well, I think like the space that probably even started making me think more is like, so, and I've kind of touched on it briefly a little bit. Like we live in an entertainment business. People just want to see us entertained for 2.5 hours a week. And to be honest, like it's probably a fair comment. No one gives a shit about what happens during the week.
Yeah.
Or the stuff that you have to go through to be able to get yourself to play. Like a lot of guys, like I would say 98% of guys in the AFL don't feel primed and ready to go for a game. There's no way that happens. Like they're physically enabled to be functioning at 100% in some 100%. Manner. In some manner. So, but then when you get injured, like a significant injury, the toll that it takes to be able to pick yourself back up, go through your recovery process, get yourself back and going. Like physically, it's like you can't probably know it's like, yep, I'll be sweet. But mentally, it's like you go to these places where like it's just, I don't know, it's the expectation that like they'll be fine, they get back and we'll just see you when you return. I was like, yeah, but the shit that you have to go through to be able to get there, like I feel like it gets undervalued. Like it's like, and it questions like, puts into question like what you do, is it really worth it? But then as soon as you start feeling healthy again, you're like, of course it is. Yeah. But then it's like, you just pray that nothing else like that happens again.
I think it's one of those things I look back now and I'm like, the mental resilience of AFL players. Like whenever you go into you're 18, you know, you get a little like quirky, you're like, oh my gosh, this is the worst thing in the world. Like over the weekend, Ash got a quirky. I just looked at him, I was like, yeah, you'd be right, mate. Like, it's like, play on, like you'll be all right. So I think you just become that more resilient where other things in your life that might be stressful for other people, you just kind of like, oh, things could be worse.
100%.
Like could be a lot worse.
So touch wood, I'm done with injuries.
I've got to ask this question though. Are you going to be playing with a sleeve? Are you going to be the next Allen Iverson?
Well, funny you mentioned that. I've been running the sleeve because I've obviously got to get some protection for my forearm, elbow. Yeah. And then, I'll be running, I've got to get it ticked off through the AFL, which I don't think will be an issue. But yeah, I'll be running with like a full one sleeve. So yeah, if I can kick the ball like Steph shoots, then I'll be pretty happy. But yeah, I'll be running with that definitely this year because I need protection for my arm. Like there's no doubt, and there's no shying away from that. We made the call to return, and given I got the medal in there and the significant scars, like if I do any damage to that, well, the last thing I need to do is end up in hospital again. And at the end of the year, I'll get all the metal taken out. So
how many pins and stuff is it?
I'd hate to think, mate. Like I've got photos on my phone where it's just like it's metal from my wrist to my elbow, both bones, and then just screws from top to bottom. So there's enough in there. But it all has to come out due to the infection that I had. So look forward to that day.
As a man that loves accessories on the football field, it's going to be good. I can't wait to see this. Oh, yeah, fella's going to love it too. All right, well, I want to ask this. A lot of people listening to this podcast, Collingwood fans, listening and watching Collingwood Football Club over the last 2 years. How's the feeling? Like, because we'll talk about Melbourne and stuff, and we'll go into the Freezim and D game here in a bit. But I guess like you're a man who's experienced a few different coaches, a few different experiences from your career and the sense of different teams you played for. Like comparatively, like can you compare like some of the other times in your career to the experiences now you're having over the last year and a half? Yeah,
I guess for me is like Fly's greatest strength is like, he's almost like an amazing people manager. So but what he does, he creates this space where like footy's filled with mistakes. And it's like, as a human being, regardless if you're playing sport or you're doing something, you make an error, your instant response is like, you probably go into your shell a bit. But then as athletes, you're just told to like move on. I was like, it's all well and good to say that. I was like, forget about it. But it was like, for me personally, like that's something that I struggle with. It's like, I'd make an error by foot and then you instantly like, don't give me the ball again because I don't want to do it the same again. It takes a while. It's like my mentality was like, it just took games experience to be able to get past that hurdle. It was like, just forget about it. You know, naturally it's like, give me the ball again. I'll go for the same thing. And with any luck, it comes off. But Fly's created a space where he goes, I don't care if you make errors. And it's like, I just want you to move on, have fun, play to your strengths. But what he does is supports that. He backs that up with evidence. So whether it's vision, it's all well and good to say, I don't care if you make a mistake. But then when you make one, you get smacked. I was like, whoa. That's like the complete worst thing you could possibly do.
Yeah.
And like I've been exposed to that kind of coaching plenty of times, whereas I feel like Fly's really true to what he actually says. Like we as a team, and you can vouch for it, we make more mistakes than anyone in the whole comp, but no one cares. No one cares. It's like we play this chaotic manner of footy that is filled with like, if we don't have it, it's crazy pressure. And when we do have it, it's just chaotic ball movement. But no one looks like it's like out of control, like mentally. It's like they're all just like happy to be a part of it. Kick it out of bounds on the full. Who cares? Probably just laugh. Like the greatest vision I saw was when Bruzzy turned that ball over. And I reckon I've heard you speak about it. He laughs about it. I was like,
people are like, why is he laughing after a shit kick? I was like,
and that's the greatest thing is now. Like the hardest thing is like we're going really well, so that probably gets seen as like a positive thing for us.
Yeah,
I would dare say if someone from this could be controversial, but if someone from North Melbourne kicks out right now, turns the ball over, gets booed straight over his head and he laughs about it, we would see that as a great thing. We would go, oh, how good's that? They've got like things are obviously going really well there, like with that kind of space. But I guarantee the media would rip him. Yeah. Like they'd be like, why would he be laughing? Like they're losing or they're not going that great. How could you possibly be laughing? Whereas contradicting exactly what Braden Maynard does, just because the team's going well, that's accepted. Why should that be any different? So thankfully we just live in a space where that's what we do. And I feel like the team thrive on it. Like the experienced players are playing really well, but our kids are like playing super well as well. So the environment bleeds into the way that we play. And I've probably had the best of both worlds. I played 24 games last year, but then this year I've only played one and now I'm an observer. So I get to sit on the other side and watch. I've never been more jealous of playing in my whole life, ever. And it's just watching guys have fun, do their thing, and the results take care of themselves due to the fact that everyone just looks like they're having a hell of a time. Even the coaching staff, it's like there's a pretty relaxed environment, but at the same time, there's a ruthless mentality that we need to get better, and we understand we need to get better. Last year, you could probably sit back and go, successful year, how good, prelim. But then we're a lot better side this year than we were last year. And we're still missing a few key personnel that can potentially make us better again. And that just creates this environment where guys are thriving, pushing, and it comes from the players, but also Fly's at the top of that that's just leading this amazing surgence within the group. And I feel like everyone's just thriving.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy, and it's awesome to be a part of it. It's tough, I think, as a coach to be able to find that line of care and also motivation of people, and trying to push people to be better, but also care for them as a person.
Yeah,
I think that's one of Fly's greatest strengths. I think.
Yeah, well, he said is there's no greater thing than to invest time into people. And you've had the experience of dealing with Fly, especially early days.
Well, I think that's one of the coolest things is like, because he was here before. So you've got like myself, Pendles, Darcy Moore, like all these, like Braden Maynard, Jordan DeGoey, like all these guys that were there early days. And then now, like whenever he came in, it was like, we already know what he's about. We already know his like kind of character and everything else. So like we were already invested in like into it and we're like, yep, cool. Let's just hit the ground running.
Yeah.
And then we go on 11 game winning streak at the back end. I think that was just like the first 6 games where we're trying to figure out what our game plan was, how to play it. Yeah. And then everyone just bought in so quickly.
As players, you want consistency across the board. It's like when it gets confusing is like when there's like mixed messaging or potentially like weeks change dramatically regardless of what happens on the weekend. And the great thing that we've been able to do for the last couple of seasons is like win, loss or draw, it doesn't matter. Our weeks remain the same. It's like the expectation is still come in, enjoy what you do. And like we'll do a 20-minute review regardless if we won or lost. And it's like you get this little pointy piece out and then you're done. Yeah. It's changed a hell of a lot. Like early days at Melbourne, our reviews would go for like 2.5, 3 hours.
2.5, 3 hours
because
for a review of the game.
We pretty much go and watch the games from like behind the goals in pairs and then just like give each other feedback on how we went. But then all of a sudden, because you don't go that well, they feel like more is better.
Yeah.
Whereas we live in a space now, whereas less is more. Like, yeah, we probably, in season, we train a lot less, but it's a lot more punchy. Meetings, you can't keep us engaged for any longer than 20 minutes. I'm telling you. There's some blokes you can't keep engaged for 2 minutes.
Off the walls. It's like,
but then you've got the opportunities to follow up. If you want to go sit down for an extra half hour, go do it. For me, that's certainly not me.
Yeah.
But it's like you can get me in a room for 20 minutes and I'll be fully invested in that meeting. Yeah. Any longer than that, you'll probably start losing me. And I feel like that's where they've got the balancing act right and they maximise the time we've got. Time is definitely shortening. It's like they probably want more, but what we do have is like they certainly make the most of it.
Yeah, for sure. And they let us have days off whenever we want days off. I feel like so some people are like, you guys
are getting more days off than you are at the club at the moment. So.
I see you just getting flogged every single day in rehab, and I'm like, good Lord.
It's a good thing for the recovery space in rehab because it certainly makes you don't want to ever go back there. Like it is.
Is a rehab harder than a preseason?
It's torture at the moment.
Wow.
Like, well, what Dino produced, like when he gave us feedback, he goes, your numbers are better than what you'd produced in the whole of pre-season. I was like, we've only been in there for like we've been in there for 10 weeks, but Lipper's like punching out numbers that have never been seen before.
Unreal.
And I've got to run with him.
I've got to tail his ass the whole time.
It's horrific. So I just choose not to run with him anymore because it's flattening.
Yeah. Well, thank God whenever I did my rehab, it was 2 sessions. It was split. Well, that's 2 sessions.
You want in, out.
In, out. Yeah.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. Oh, man. Well, you're part of the leadership group at Collingwood. You've seen the transition of Scott Pendlebury over to Darcy Moore. What has been the biggest difference that you've seen between the two players?
Well, I think the experience that Pendle's probably had is hard to replace. Like, I think his game sense and game knowledge across all lines, I think that's probably, and tactically, that's probably one of Pendle's greatest strengths. He sees things that a lot of players probably don't. And I think the evolution of Darcy, like Darcy was so valuable for us in a back line and as a team that he's like irreplaceable, dominates games. But now I think taking on that leadership role at the top, he's starting to see the game holistically and starts to like figure out like tactically what needs to happen. And I feel like that's a pretty hard space to live in because you kind of want to do your own job. But now he's got this broad vision of helping all his teammates out. And I feel like it's been great for him because, you know, his footy speaks volumes for the way that he's going. Like he's
pretty damn good.
But he was always going to be an amazing advocate for the club because, like, you just look at the way that he speaks, the way that he presents. You know, like his Anzac Day speech gets plenty of like positivity, which is well and truly deserved. But what he does, behind the scenes for the club is enormous. But then I feel like we're also getting the fruits of what he does on game day. Like his game has gone to a whole new level, whether or not he's because he's captain or not. But I feel like he's certainly riding it and wearing it with pride, and like the boys couldn't be any more happy running out behind him. And, you know, the difference between him and Pendles, they do it a little bit different ways. Like Pendles used to be pretty ruthless, like pretty ruthless. Whereas I feel like he almost softened a little bit and almost found a way to be able to still get his point across, but communicate it potentially like in a more effective way that was a bit more appealing to a lot more people. Whereas Darcy's probably almost had that empathy a bit more. His communicating skills are really good.
Mm.
And I feel like he's just going to continue to develop in the tactic space, which for us as a team, it's exciting because if he can continually make us better, then who knows what can happen.
Does it piss you off that he's got to come over and take some of your mocks in the back line now?
Well, the good thing is, like, so me and Darcy, when we play together, we probably, like, he's certainly one of the guys I enjoy the most because we almost have vision communication. Like, I don't have to speak to him to understand where he is. And I feel like we've got the same in that as well. So if I'm behind him, he knows where I'm going. He knows where I'm going to be. If the ball goes over his head, he knows I'll be there. And then vice versa. But like early days when we played together, we always probably got fighting for the same ball. So we always would hit each other, run into each other. If I'll go for a mark, he might spoil me, or same, he's out in the clear and I just come and shit mix him. And then all of a sudden hits the ground, one of our players kick a goal. And we look at each other going, man, come on. And that became a growth area for us. So the synergy that we created certainly made us better. But it's just a privilege to run out there and play with him because he dominates and he inspires his teammates to do the same.
Oh, it's insane. He's I will say this about Darcy Moore. I think I've been injured from Darcy Moore more than other players in the comp. He's gangly, just like
he knocked me out cold. The first time I've ever been knocked out.
Yeah.
Jacob Townsend, when we played Richmond, I remember it so clear that he was obviously trying to stop me from going in the aerial, so he pinned my arms behind my back. And I went in, and Darcy came flying through the other way and kneed me flush in the head. And then the next minute, I just remember Fuchsy trying to pick me up. And it was on the other side of the wing. So I obviously completely KO'd for a bit. Thankfully, I was completely fine after I got off the ground. But yeah, that comes with the way that he plays.
Oh, he's just...
To be honest, it's like the amount of people he's hurt, probably about half as many as you've hurt.
Yeah. Well, I'll wear a shin guard. See, if you wore a shin guard going against state goal, you might not be alive today.
True that.
That might be the case. Well, we've had people like Dustin Fletcher in here, and he gave some good stories on some footy trips. Now, you've been on some footy trips throughout your life, I'm assuming.
Yes.
Any good stories in the off season?
Oh, there's
What's your favorite place? We'll start off with this.
The best place we probably went to was Melbourne. That was something that they did really well. It was almost like a legacy piece from the senior players that got left all the way through. Like going back, like David Neitz, for instance, there was a set of rules that you would have to apply by. There was always like a few games that you would always play. You had a set time that you'd all have to meet, and a lot of the things that we actually did really well was like this is. Like, yes, there's plenty of drinking that goes on and you have a bit of fun and like it's probably a chance to unwind, but also there's an opportunity to get to know blokes that you probably not normally hang out with. Like we were getting 25 to 28 guys that would go. Jeez. And it's like, and that would range from like 33-year-olds to 19-year-olds. But by the end of it, it's like there's just like no gap. Like everyone hangs out, has a great time. But then one of the greatest things that we'd always do at the end, so the last night when we all meet, is there's always those guys that have unfortunately been delisted. So we sit in a circle and we all speak about those guys in the circle. So it ended up just turning into like this massive emotional circle where blokes are just crying. And then it just turns into like a big collective group hug. Everyone gets around each other. And that's that's kind of your opportunity to go, thanks for what you've been able to give us. Friendships will remain the same, even though you're not here, and you send them off. And that's how you finish it. And that's probably like the greatest part. It's like, yeah, you have some fun along those few nights, but it's like that's probably the greatest and most meaningful part of it. And, you know, like footy trips these days they're not really apparent. They don't really happen. But like you can still have collective guys that want to go and do things, or, you know, you finish the year and you probably just go to a venue now and just enjoy each other's company. And that's probably the important part, instead of old school used to just go get pissed for a few days and then unwind and get home. So it's definitely changed and evolved, and, you know, I'm probably a fan of that more so than the partying these days, given that I'm 32.
Family. It's a different than Mrs. Tony to come home at 9, 10 p.m. So, did you get a send-off whenever you left Melbourne to come to Collingwood? Or?
No, funnily enough, I didn't. So I actually, I had turf toe the last game of the year. So I had a really, really bad injury. So I was in a moon boot. I didn't partake in the end of season trip, and all the boys obviously knew that I requested a trade as well. So didn't get the send off, but yeah, look, I'll still speak to a fair few of them now, even though there's only probably 2 or 3 guys at that club that were there when I first got there.
Yeah.
But a lot of the older guys, we still catch up probably once a month, try and make an effort. Because for me, they were the guys that looked after me when I was 20 and now I'm 33 and they're still like my closest mates. So we still try and make an effort to catch up. Yeah, like I said, like once a month for dinner and a few beers, which is good.
One of the first things I remember whenever you came to the club you told me about was how shit your record was. Like your career record. Did you have the worst record in the AFL or something like that at some point?
Oh, it wouldn't have been great. So, yeah, like I still had, my record would say I had a shit one. But it was like my time at Melbourne was great.
Yeah.
Had fun.
Win-loss, not so great.
Win-loss, not so great. So it's like, so I played 100 games on the dot and only won 20.
Oh.
So 80 losses. So if you think about it, it's like you win one, you're bound to lose the next 5. Like,
Jeez.
so it was, it was pretty grim in that space because, you're like, fuck. It's like you didn't know when your next win was coming and where it was coming from. So I think there was a 3-year stretch where I played every game, so 66 games, and we went 2-20. 4-18, 2-20.
2-20.
So we won 8 games out of a possible 66, and I played every one of them. So, difficult time at the club. Hence why I had 5 coaches in 5 years. Yeah. So it's hard to get continuity and consistent output. Probably when the turnover's so great consistently. So, but they've got all their things in a line at the moment because they've been one of the most dominant teams the last probably 3 years. So it was always going to turn, but unfortunately for me, it wasn't going to turn when I was there.
Yeah.
So coming to Collingwood was still the greatest decision I've ever made. By my footy became a lot better. I felt like I was valued for what I was coming across the road for, even though it was a different role. But what I've been able to do at Collingwood, I feel like it's a lot more consistent than what I was ever going to achieve at Melbourne. So
so that was like one of the main reasons you're coming over to Collingwood, just to have a bit of consistency.
100%. And then I was like I wasn't playing that great in my last year anyway. Yeah. And I was just like probably sat down with even Goody as well because he was taking over the year that I was leaving. And it was just a conversation probably where they saw me at, and it was a fair conversation.
Tough, isn't it?
And then I was just like, I didn't say him in my exit meeting I'm leaving, but they knew the writing was on the wall that I wasn't enjoying it that much. The hardest thing is like leaving your teammates. That's probably the hardest thing that you ever do, especially because I was only there for 5 years.
Yeah.
But the bonds that you make with guys in 5 years is through the roof. So that was certainly the hardest part. But then that door shuts, and then you go straight to Collingwood, and then the way that I was embraced at Collingwood was unbelievable. And I feel like guys changing clubs these days is certainly nothing like it was back 15, 20 years ago. But and I think it would become a lot more common.
Yeah. Oh, it's 100% it will, I think.
The old mid-season one that gets flagged though, I was like, I'm not too sure how that'll sit. But
that's the big question mark. How many?
Oh, it'd be pretty hard. I actually listened to Gorney made a good comment the other day. It was like, it's probably the intel that you can give another team. So it's like, if I left and went to Brisbane, like leading into the finals, like imagine the intel that I could give Brisbane about us.
Yeah.
Like that's a massive markup in terms of an advantage, and what to expect. So who knows? It's probably somewhere where we will end up. Yeah. But I guess that's what you got to live with. I guess like that stuff happening.
It's gonna be an interesting time in the AFL for some of the decisions they make. That's for sure.
Oh, yeah.
Who knows?
That's for the powers that be.
We'll move into, obviously we've got the big freeze this weekend, big M&D match. You've played on both sides of this, so you've experienced both sides. Is there much of a difference between the Collingwood experience to the Melbourne experience of this round?
I don't think so. I was like,
does Neil pick a team? Does he?
He's clearly Melbourne.
Surely, yeah.
Clearly Melbourne.
Does he kind of give a bit more to Melbourne than he does Collingwood?
Well,
he motivate the boys a little bit more. Just a little more.
Well, I think for me, fortunately enough, playing in those early ones at Melbourne, Neil would come in, and at that stage he was able to still have his voice and speak really clearly, and the whole build up to the game was great. Like you're trying to get these reach points of motivation, but for him just to walk into the room was enough for us at Melbourne. It was like seeing him, then listening to him speak, like at Collingwood, like Anzac Day is like, yes, that's the day. Like I want to play that day. And it was like at Melbourne, Queen's birthday was that day. It's like round 11. It's like, get me there. I want to play. It's against Collingwood. And like I'd never won one, but I was like, it was the enjoyment of that week and the game. Like, you know, it was like I'd never been exposed to finals either. It's as close to a final as you'll get. And like, it's actually got so many legs now with like what Neil's been able to achieve and build that, you know, it rivals in terms of attendance, like at Anzac Day / a big final. So everyone gets around it. Like he's probably the most inspiring guy, not only in sport, but what he's been able to do for such a long time. And if you look up resilience in a dictionary, there should be a photo of him, like next to it, like what he's been able to do for 9 years. Like
it's wild.
Unfortunately, like this beast that they call it takes people in months. He's lasted 9 years.
It's crazy.
And he's still going. So it's like, he's closely aligned to Melbourne. So they obviously we get fortunately enough to get him into the club as well. But he definitely would support Melbourne on the day, as much as he probably wouldn't admit it too much. But it's a great occasion, one that guys should be incredibly grateful to be a part of. And everyone supports it well because there's nothing better than seeing the whole ground with blue beanies on.
Yeah, it's cool, isn't it? Yeah.
And like not the old ones. I was like, you get your fresh one.
It's refreshed every year.
You get your fresh one every year. So it's like, it's an amazing cause, and you know, I'm saddened to not be a part of the actual game. But what I can do is still turn up, wear my beanie, and watch what is going to be a great game.
I'm going to throw this out there. Would you go down on the slide?
No chance.
We're not announcing a slide room. No chance.
Oh,
no, I would love to.
If they asked me to, I'd do it. But I was like, Jesus, like
shoot a few texts after this.
Slider number 7, Jay Howe.
How what would you dress up as?
See, that's another thing. Who knows? Not much.
Tassie Tiger.
Tassie
Tiger. Unreal. Well, there's another person I want to ask you about that's been part of your experience now. Jim Steins. He's a person I've always kind of, I don't know, like people have always told me about him because he has similar experience of coming from a different country, and then obviously the career he had was phenomenal.
Yeah.
Like, what was your experience with him before he'd passed, unfortunately?
Yeah. Again, like you hold guys like, it's just like even bringing him up is like, for me, like I've only had this small window in sport, and to be able to cross paths with like, you know, inspiring giants like those two that you've just mentioned, like Jim was that guy with the Reach Foundation and what he was able to produce with that and do so much for so many people. Like his footy spoke for itself. He was an absolute star, almost like the pioneer for Irish sports people to come to Australia and dominate the sport. And I think he's the one that Crispy's trying to chase down his record, by the way. 244 games in a row.
Chris is at 201 this weekend.
201 this week. So he'll do everything he can to chase it down. But he was one of those guys, again, like he would have like his chemo treatments. He was so sick, but then still find a way. He'd turn up to training. Like he'd come and just want to hang out. He just he goes, don't have to say anything. He just wants to see there, just wants to be there. Not to be seen, but just to show an element of support. Disregard what was even happening in his own life. He always found ways to be able to go out of his way and do things for others. And yeah, it was unbelievable. Like, and like I was fortunate enough to go to his funeral. Like I think it was like the state funeral, and like that's when you start realizing the impact that this guy had. Like the turnout. Like I just remember standing in the middle of the street when they drove away, and I was just like, I just had goosebumps. I was almost like shivering about like the moment that I was experiencing, like to be a part of something like that. And yeah, he was like an unbelievable guy, and one that was clearly taken way too soon, because I feel like, you know, he's left an incredible legacy as is. But you think about, imagine if he lived a full life, what he could have continued to do. But I feel like what he's been able to do and leave behind, guys have picked up, and girls have picked up along the way and been able to continue that on. So he probably lived 3 lifetimes within his short one. But fortunately enough, we crossed paths, had a relationship with him when I was at Melbourne, and truly missed. Certainly in the AFL space, but broadly, like everywhere. So he's a good man.
These two people are absolute legends, just extremely selfless.
Yeah.
Like just incredible what they're doing. Like I think about Neil right now, and like he could just not do this M&D stuff. Like he could not be a part of it, and he could just go and, you know, spend time with his family and all that. But the fact that he wants to spend, you know, his time with this organization trying to fight this beast, like it's an amazing thing. I couldn't imagine putting myself in that situation. Like we had Murray Swinton at the club. I think it was 2018, and what him and his family were going through and everything along those lines. It was just, it's crazy to think. And like the fact that he's doing it and rocking up and being this kind of image of the whole, you know, round and raising millions and millions of dollars for it it's incredible, and like a credit to him and his family, and Beck, who's now helping run the whole thing. It's phenomenal really to think about.
Well, I think that's like the credit to his family as well. Like they obviously ride the emotions and they see Neil all day, every day. Yeah. And, you know, it's hard to even try and imagine, like, you know, they would have some bad days, no doubt, but it's like how they continually just rock up, do their thing. And selfless is probably the word that you just mentioned before that comes to mind, that all they want to do is continually help others. And it's like, if that's the thing that keeps them all together and keeps them going strong, then keep doing it, because what they're doing is really good.
Talk about their family. Talk about your family.
Yeah.
Young kid. Young kiddo. You telling me earlier, he flies pretty well. He's a freaking flyer.
He is.
Goes all right. How is it being a dad?
Oh, I love it. So it's like, yeah, he's unreal. So he's coming up to, he'll be 2 in a few months.
Terrible 2's coming. Boy.
Yeah, you certainly get told that. But thankfully for us, he's a good kid. His wake windows, he's just full charged. Like he sleeps well. So sorry to the people whose kids don't sleep that great. But what that does provide is when he's awake, he is ready to go. Like,
energetic.
Just get me out, get my shoes on, and it's flat out. So massively into like ball sports, loves shooting hoops upstairs and kicking a footy around. And he's a lefty.
Oi.
So he's going to be a better kick than me. Most left footers are. So that's a positive sign. But I think I'm going to get a golf stick for him.
Huge.
I think I'll get him into golf, see how he goes, if he likes it. I'm not going to be pushing it, but I'll certainly get him. I don't know if already. I was like, I'm getting him a set already before he's 2, so maybe that is pushing it a bit. But it's great, mate. I think a lot of people, when they talk about having kids, it's like it's a perfect break that is required for me when, especially, you know, playing professional sport. I get to come home and chill out with him, and days where it's just like me and him, it's great. Like seeing Carlia as a mum is like, certainly that's one of the greatest things I've ever seen. Like that, you know, is what they go through early days, and then, you know, it's pretty difficult. You soon find that your vocal support doesn't mean that much early days, especially when they're going through some tough time. But just being there and going and helping them out where you can. But yeah, I love it. It's really good. But I feel like it's the enjoyment that he's brought, like my brother for me. Like we've both got kids now, like seeing them hang out as cousins, seeing my dad like hang out with Xander, like they're just the moments that you cherish, and they're the ones that you look forward to the most. So I've always had a super tight family, and now that I've obviously started my own, that's something that's continually gone along the way. So it's great. Hopefully we can potentially get him a sibling at some stage, and then see where we go.
No, I think it's up to her probably more than anything.
True that, but she'll be all for it.
Yeah, she'll be all for it. Happy days, man. Well, you did mention golf before we get on out of here. You told me Ricky Fowler sent you a message recently?
Yes, man. So it's
for those out there, Ricky Fowler, Oklahoma State alum, represent, go Cowboys.
Like I need to even show a little bit. But so when I got injured, the Puma team, so that's just a snapshot. So he's like, there he is.
Big
so
Rick.
The camera there, the big dog. And so the Puma team, shout out, they organised a personalised bag for me, like a one-of-one custom bag, brand new driver, and a personal video from Ricky Fowler just to say get well, recover well, to get back on the course. not to play footy.
He's got no freaking idea what AFL is.
To get back on the golf course, which, you know, I kind of agree with. Like golf for me has always been like an outlet pre-Xander. It's like if I didn't have Xander, I would be out in the golf course flat out. But won't be too long. I'll be back out in the course at some stage. First things first, take care of business and get on the field, and then I'll be back out in the course.
If you could play any course in the world, what would it be? Have you played Cathedral?
I haven't.
No.
I missed out when the boys went and played it. But
word on the street, Ned, Craig
CEO.
Kelly, throwing some offers out there.
Yes.
So
Funny
We might
enough,
have to pick this up
Yeah.
tomorrow at training.
I sat next to him, watched the VFL last week or 2 weeks ago. And yeah, he's like, yeah, I'll take you out there. He's a member.
Whoa.
So
You got another one, +1?
well, the thing is, like he was actually telling me, he's like, they can take 4 people out. And if he's a member, his family get the same access as members. So
Will Kelly.
so Will Kelly can take 4 of us out.
That's
So
selfish
like-
pricks. Never given an offer out
Well, no,
for the
he-
last however many years.
He offered it to me last year and just never came about. Like it just never happened. So it will be happening because a few of the boys like Sidey and Tay played it and they said it was one of the greatest things they've ever done. So
Jeez.
that's on the list. But in terms of a golf course, it would have to be Augusta. Like I just feel like,
yeah.
but because I'm going to go there and even watch an event because I feel like watching on TV doesn't do it justice. So I need to go there and actually have a look at it in person and see how tough it is.
I've got to connect over at the PGA.
Well, is this the one where you hooked up with a bit of a Masters kit?
Nah, that was a different one.
Oh.
That was different.
You're a man of many hookups, I'm sure. So
I'll do what I can.
yeah. So
Yeah.
that'll be it's on the bucket list just to attend a Masters. But yeah, playing it would certainly be a stretch. But I'd just love to go there and watch.
It'd be epic, man.
It'd be unbelievable.
It would be.
Hell of a week. So
And well, I know whenever one of the great golf moments I've had was playing with Tiger. We did this.
Yeah,
What's this?
have you had great golf moments?
I've had golf moments.
Just meeting people.
Nothing great golf moments. But whenever we did the President's Cup, do you remember this?
Yeah.
With Steele, and then we
Yes.
wore this like really tight jumpers that didn't fit us and held the cup up like fucking idiots.
Yeah. That was good. But then it was like when I watch you go and do the promo stuff with Tiger Woods and that, I was the most jealous guy alive.
I think at that point I didn't even know who Ernie Els was.
Yeah.
I came back, I was like, I just had to hit with some golfers. You're like, who? I was like, oh, this guy named Tiger and
Oh,
Ernie. You're like, get
you're
the fuck out. I was like,
I was the flattest guy alive. It's like for a guy that doesn't enjoy golf that much or know a hell of a lot about it, you just had a hit with Tiger Woods.
I mean, I'm not saying I'm better than Tiger Woods, but I did hit the barge more than him. So, I mean, statistically, I am.
Take it.
I'll take the W.
Yeah.
I'll take the W. But we'll end on there, man. I appreciate you coming on. You're an absolute legend. I know you've got the rest of the year to look forward to, which we're excited to get you back. And I'm excited to see this sleeve on you.
Yeah.
This exciting AI sleeve. It's going to be called the Jeremy Howe sleeve. But seriously, thanks for coming on, man. Excited for you to get back and back out there playing, taking speckies.
Thanks for having me, mate. Look forward to getting back and doing our thing.